For decades, the Middle East has been a powder keg, and right now, that powder keg is smoking hotter than ever. You might hear politicians say everything is under control or this is just routine, but it's not. It's anything but routine. Iran, a nation openly hostile to Israel and the United States, is amassing missile capability at a pace the world cannot ignore. Every day brings reports of new missile tests, new drone programs, new weapons caches in Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon. And these aren't just toys for display. They are weapons designed to strike cities, ports, military bases, even civilian infrastructure. The scale of this buildup is unprecedented in recent history. In Israel is preparing like never before. Air forces buzzing, intelligence networks expanding their reach, special operations units conducting strikes with precision that is almost surgical. But the point here is not technical skill. The point is strategy. Israel is signaling something to the world. We will not be passive. Every strike, every covert operation, every sudden deployment is carefully calculated to send a message to Iran and to anyone who might consider testing Israeli resolve. And yet, much of this goes unreported. The mainstream media rarely captures the scope of these tensions. When they do, it is framed as routine political maneuvering or worse, as exaggeration. It is not exaggeration. This is urgent. Very urgent. Miscalculation here, a misstep there, and a localized incident could ignite a chain reaction that engulfs the region. And once that chain reaction begins, there is no way to predict where it will end. And now former President Trump is speaking out. His warnings to Iran are stark, unusually blunt, and remarkably direct. In Washington, such words are almost shocking in their clarity. He is telling the world what he sees that the United States cannot afford to stand by while Iran consolidates power, expands its arsenal, and threatens its neighbors. These are not idle threats. These are signals of a reality most Americans are not prepared to confront. The question, of course, is this: will anyone listen? Will Washington act decisively, or will bureaucracy, political posturing, and caution override strategy? And more importantly, are we, the American public, ready to understand what is happening on our behalf? Or more accurately, what could soon be happening to us? Because make no mistake, when the Middle East burns, the flames rarely stop at its borders. And this time, those flames could reach farther than anyone imagines. Israel in recent months has dramatically increased its military operations across the region, not quietly, but visibly. Airstrikes over Syria, targeted raids in Lebanon, intelligence gathering stretching into the shadowy corners of Iraq. This is not defensive posturing. This is an intentional, deliberate campaign. A strategy designed to send a message not just to Iran, but to the entire Middle East. And the message is clear: we will not allow threats to fester. We will not wait until conflict reaches our doorstep. Consider the precision of these operations. Israeli forces are not firing blindly. They are using advanced surveillance, satellite intelligence, and signals intelligence to strike at very specific targets. Weapons depots, military installations, suspected headquarters of Iranian-backed militias. Every strike is calculated to achieve maximum effect while minimizing collateral damage, or at least that is the intent. But precision does not equal safety. Each strike carries risk. Every attack risks retaliation, and when Israel moves, the entire region holds its breath. The question is, who benefits from this escalation? Some will argue Israel's security is paramount. Others will see a regional deterrence strategy in play. But there are deeper, more troubling dynamics. Shadowy networks, arms suppliers, proxy groups, and private military contractors all profit from perpetual conflict. Every round fired, every missile launched, every covert raid feeds an ecosystem built on instability. And the more Israel engages, the more this ecosystem grows stronger. Ask yourself, who actually benefits from this escalation? Is it Israel seeking to ensure its own survival? Or is it Iran showing that defiance and ambition cannot be ignored? Or more insidiously, is it the invisible web of players who thrive in perpetual conflict? The arms dealers, the lobbyists, the contractors, and even some politicians who benefit from a world constantly at war. Because make no mistake, when escalation becomes routine, profits rise, and human lives become disposable statistics in a geopolitical ledger. Israel's strategy is both defensive and aggressive, and that duality is exactly what makes it so dangerous. Defensive in the sense that Israel is acting to protect itself, aggressive in that the messaging is designed to provoke thought or fear among adversaries. Every military operation is a statement, but statements have consequences. And in a region where misinterpretation is common and mistrust is rampant, the consequences can escalate in ways no one anticipates. Then there is timing. The timing of these strikes is critical. Some occur just after Iranian missile tests. Others are strategically aligned with international diplomatic talks, sometimes even to send a signal to the United States and other Western powers. This is the reality on the ground. Ignore it at your own peril. Israel's military escalation is a reminder of an uncomfortable truth. In the Middle East, action breeds reaction, and reaction breeds instability. And instability, once unleashed, is extremely difficult to contain. And of course, Iran is not standing still. Not for a moment. While Israel increases its military presence, Iran has been quietly and in some cases openly advancing its own capabilities. Their missile programs are expanding, drone technology is rapidly advancing, and their influence across Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon continues to grow. Tehran portrays this as defensive, a buffer against foreign aggression. But anyone watching closely sees the reality. An aggressive posture designed to project power, deter enemies, and expand regional influence. The sophistication of Iran's arsenal is concerning. Missiles capable of reaching targets hundreds of miles away. Drones that can be deployed with precision for surveillance or strikes. Covert operations coordinated with regional militias that have no oversight, no accountability. A single miscalculation, a misfired missile, an unconfirmed intelligence report, a misinterpreted move could trigger a chain reaction. A localized skirmish could rapidly escalate into full-blown conflict, and the entire world would feel the repercussions. Meanwhile, Iran's rhetoric is increasingly alarming. Leaders issue statements that mix religious ideology with geopolitical threats. Every word is calculated to signal defiance and determination. And yet, despite this build-up and aggressive posture, the international community largely seems content to watch, largely inactive. Sanctions are applied inconsistently, diplomatic efforts falter, and each day that passes without a decisive response, Iran's hand grows stronger. And here is the problem. Every missile test, every arms shipment, every covert operation tightens the news around regional stability. Iran's actions force Israel to respond. Israel's responses provoke further Iranian planning. And in the middle of this cycle is a dangerous inertia, a momentum that no one is actively managing. The result, a slow motion collision course toward war. Not because anyone desires it, not because any government openly calls for it, but because the dynamics themselves, missiles, drones, intelligence operations, proxy forces create conditions where war becomes almost inevitable. Consider the psychological dimension as well. Iranian leadership is signaling both to its people and to the world, we are prepared. We are strong. We will not back down. This communicates power internally, but externally it raises tension, stokes fear, and encourages preemptive responses. And when preemptive responses occur, we move closer to the very conflict everyone claims to want to avoid. Every act has a consequence, and Iran is proving that principle in real time. And yet, too many people in Washington and elsewhere continue to treat this buildup as background noise. Make no mistake, this is not noise. It is the ticking of a very large, very dangerous clock. And the longer the world waits, the louder that ticking becomes. The United States has always been caught in this triangle: Israel, Iran, and the broader Middle East. It's a triangle that doesn't just exist on maps. It exists in strategy rooms, in war councils, in the decisions of policymakers who may never visit the region, but whose choices affect millions of lives. Trump's warnings are a signal, a clear message to Tehran, to allies, and to adversaries alike. The U.S. cannot be indifferent. But history shows that Washington's response is rarely consistent. Promises are made with fanfare, only be quietly forgotten. Threats are issued in press conferences, then abandoned in practice. And ordinary Americans, by design or accident, rarely get the full picture. The complexity of the Middle East is staggering. Allies and adversaries intermingle in ways that defy simple explanations. Regional powers, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Egypt, have their own agendas. Iran has its proxies. Israel has alliances with intelligence networks stretching across Europe and beyond. And the United States, despite its global reach, is constantly balancing competing priorities: energy security, trade relations, counterterrorism, and public perception. In this environment, a single miscalculation can ripple outward, producing consequences that are impossible to fully anticipate. Let's talk about the stakes. The U.S. has strategic interests in the region. Oil, gas trade routes, and military bases all factor into the calculus. But beyond the material, there's principles supporting allies, deterring aggression, maintaining credibility on the global stage. And yet, maintaining credibility is more challenging than it sounds. Every action or inaction is scrutinized, dissected, and interpreted, often inaccurately, by friends and foes alike. The result is a geopolitical chessboard in which every piece matters, but the moves are rarely clear. The risk is not just a Middle Eastern conflict. The risk is a U.S. military engagement without clear objectives, without well-defined consequences, and without the public even understanding what is at stake. Imagine the scenario: a U.S. strike in response to an Iranian provocation, a miscalculation in timing or scale, and suddenly American troops are drawn into a conflict far larger than anyone intended. And all the while, back home, ordinary citizens continue their lives, oblivious to the fact that decisions made in distant war rooms are shaping the fate of millions and could cost thousands of lives. And consider public perception. The media often simplifies, misrepresents, or ignores the stakes altogether. Citizens hear sound bites: tensions rise, conflict threatens, the leaders meet. But these phrases obscure the reality of modern warfare: precision strikes, cyber operations, drone deployments, special forces missions, proxy engagements. The average viewer might not realize that what looks like a headline is actually the prelude to a much larger, far more dangerous situation. This is why understanding U.S. involvement is critical. Ignorance here is not bliss, it's peril. History repeats itself in the Middle East. And if we ignore the lessons of the past, we are doomed to repeat them. Take 1970 and the Iranian Revolution, a regime change that caught the world off guard, a hostage crisis that humiliated the United States, and a chain of events that shaped global politics for decades. Or 1991, when the Gulf War erupted after Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait. What began as a border dispute escalated into a major international conflict, dragging multiple powers into a complex war. And then 2003, the Iraq War. What started as the search for weapons of mass destruction turned into a decade-long quagmire with consequences still being felt today. Each time the initial warnings were there, ignored, downplayed, or misunderstood that Iran and Israel are not new adversaries. Their tensions go back decades, from covert operations to military skirmishes, from proxy wars to missile tests. The pattern is clear. Warning signs are issued. Signals are ignored, escalation happens, and catastrophe follows. Yet, in modern discourse, these historical lessons are often treated as footnotes, as if they belong to a different era, irrelevant to current events. They are not. They are directly relevant. They are the blueprint of what can, and often will, happen if caution is thrown aside. So when we see tension rising now, it is not random. It is predictable. Israel reacts to perceived threats, Iran reacts to perceived encroachments, and the United States reacts inconsistently. Each move sets off counter moves. Each reaction sparks further reactions. The Middle East is not chaotic by accident. It is chaotic because the rules of escalation, deterrence, and perception are fragile, easily misunderstood, and frequently violated. And yet, the press treats it like an accident waiting to happen rather than a crisis that requires urgent management, serious planning, and above all, understanding history is not academic, it is survival. Each incident, each missile test, each strike in Syria or Iraq carries echoes of 1979, 1991, 2003. Each could escalate in ways that policymakers claim to want to avoid but are poorly prepared to control. And in that vacuum of preparation, ordinary people are most at risk. Because when leaders miscalculate, civilians bear the consequences. Experts, general seasoned foreign policy analysts, intelligence operatives warn that the balance in the Middle East is precarious. Missile ranges overlap. Underground networks interconnect across borders. Regional militias, some loyal to Tehran, others to Israel or other powers, operate with little oversight. All of these elements converge in ways that could spiral out of control in an instant. The experts are clear it wouldn't take a massive war to destabilize the region. A single misstep, one incorrect strike, one retaliatory attack, one misread signal could rapidly escalate into a much larger conflict. And the complexity grows by the day. Iran's missile capabilities are expanding. Israel's preemptive doctrine is sharpening. U.S. forces are increasingly involved as advisors and strategists, and Russia and China watch carefully, calculating their own moves. Experts warn that these overlapping interests create a perfect storm. They describe it as a powder keg, not just of military might, but a misperception, miscommunication, and human error. The smallest error could ignite something uncontrollable. Pay attention. Not because the media will tell you to, but because ignoring it could be catastrophic. Listen to those who have spent decades studying this region, who have been inside strategy rooms, who have seen firsthand the consequences of miscalculation. These are not alarmists. They are professionals warning that the mechanisms of escalation are already in motion, and if the right or wrong button is pressed, the outcome could be disastrous. And once it starts, there is no simple way to stop it. Imagine a scenario where a single missile is misinterpreted as an act of war or drone strike hits the wrong target. Suddenly, the conflict broadens. Airstrikes follow. Ground forces mobilize, alliances are tested, and before anyone can assess the consequences, the region is engulfed in chaos. Experts warn that this is not hypothetical. It is a very real possibility, and it is closer than most people realize. Israel is escalating. Iran is responding. The United States is caught squarely in the middle. History shows that the outcome is rarely what anyone intends. Misunderstandings, miscalculations, and miscommunication are more common than deliberate aggression. And yet, far too many Americans remain oblivious. They read headlines, hear sound bites, see images of missiles or soldiers, and assume incorrectly that these are distant problems, abstract crises happening somewhere else. They are not. This is real, this is now, and it could shape the world we live in tomorrow. The danger is compounded by human nature, denial, distraction, and the assumption that conflict is someone else's problem. But it is not. History has shown time and again that when the powerful speak and act, the consequences are not theoretical. They are concrete, immediate, and often deadly. Every decision made in a war room, every diplomatic negotiation, every military strike carries the potential to ripple outward, affecting millions, including those far from the battlefield. So what should we do? Watch carefully. Question what you are being told. Recognize that there are interests at play far beyond what is presented in media headlines. Understand the patterns of history, the motivations of leaders, the risks of escalation. And above all, remember this: when the powerful act, the consequences are real. They are fast, and they are coming. Ignoring them is not an option. Awareness, engagement, and informed scrutiny are the only ways to prevent being blindsided by events that could define an entire generation. And finally, remember that the story is ongoing. This is not a static situation. It is evolving, dynamic, and extremely dangerous. Every hour brings new developments. Every decision can tilt the balance closer to conflict, or, if wisely managed, toward deterrence. But deterrence requires clarity, courage, and understanding, qualities that are rare in politics but essential for survival. So watch, learn, question, and stay aware. Because when the Middle East catches fire, the flames do not stay contained.